hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome back to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, joined always by my best friends in the world, my podcasting partners, my line mates. There's so many metaphors I could use here. Christie Casciano Burns and Mike Bonelli. And today, very popular topic every year that we do, the rule changes for the 2024-25 season based on USA Hockey. What are they? What do you need to know? How can we help you get ready for this season? Well, there's three big rule changes this year. Some of them affect you all, some don't. The biggest one, the one we're going to lead with tonight, is obviously the mandating of neck guards. Neck guards will be required for all players beginning August 1st. There's no wiggle room on this. If you do not wear a neck guard, you will not be able to play hockey in a USA Hockey-sanctioned event. Guys, let's dive into it. Obviously, this rule is being based on the tragedy that occurred in the United Kingdom last season, where a young man lost his life due to I'm just going to say it, escape blade right to the neck. It sent the hockey world into a frenzy, as it should. And now neck guards are being required in youth hockey from U18 all the way down. Thoughts, opinions, good rule? How do we
Great rule.
It is
Great rule.
Yeah.
It's about time. I can't tell you, up until my kids were teenagers, I had no problem with them wearing neck guards. And then something happens, teen years, no one wears neck guards, impossible. And you talk to the coach, and the coach is like, well, yeah, it's up to the kid. Yeah, it doesn't, they don't want to wear it. I'm not going to make them wear it. Why not? It just, and the refs, the whole rules should have been there. You cannot step on this ice without a neck guard. I wish I was in charge years ago when my kids were playing. Every single kid would have had their neck guard on, and they didn't. There were a lot of close calls. I've got photos of kids with slashes so close to, hitting that vital vein. It could have been absolutely tragic for them. So yes. And now it's a lot easier for kids because there's clothing that you can wear. If you don't like the neck guard, it's built right in to your protective shirt. So thank you, USA Hockey, for doing this. And parents, I hope you all get behind it.
Well, you have no choice. I was gonna say you have no choice but to get behind it. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Christy. Is what I'm saying is that whether you're behind it or not, you do not have a choice anymore.
But if kids start giving you some grief about it, explain to them this is the rule, and let me show you why. Show them some close calls.
Absolutely.
Look what happened here. It's this rule should have been in place years ago.
I agree. Mike, I want to get your thoughts on this too.
I think it's a lot of it's just how, the culture of hockey. Listen, neck guards are mandated when I played. I have pictures of me with a white Cooper
sock, the sock
neck guard with the metal rings in it. And, and I remember in high school taping it down. So you made it small. So you had a neck guard on.
Right.
But it was just there. And that was mandated. I mean, that was in the 80s. So I don't know where we've gone from the mandate to not caring. To Christie's point, the unenforcement of it by coaches and administrators and officials. So I think it just chalks up to one of those things where, I believe this is, and I think it's a trickle down. Any brand new equipment and any safety gear trickles down. The IIHF right now is mandating neck protection for their players. These are pro hockey players.
Right.
So if you're an NHL player and you play in an IIHF event, you have to wear a neck guard now. So it's only a matter of time. It's very similar to face masks, right? Is it ego? If it's ego, then it's easy, right? That you have better equipment now. You have shirts that are built in with the neck guard in it. They're more comfortable. And I think it's just one of those things where if you don't get kids wearing it early on,
right,
6 years old, like it should just, like, to me, a neck guard outfit, like that should just be part of your equipment when you start playing ice hockey. Is it a lot harder to introduce a 13-year-old to a neck guard shirt? Just like it's hard to tell a 13-year-old to start wearing a mouth guard when they've never worn a mouth guard. So it's just, there's all these little things you can do. But I think it has to start with the first day you step on the ice. Then it has to be just ingrained into, well, this is just what we wear for equipment. Yes, it's not tough, and it's not old school, and it's not, we're making everybody soft. Listen, this is just part of the equipment, and you should wear it. And I would even go a step further in saying that these neck guards should have some kind of a heavier base Kevlar support because of the way our science is showing us that the amount of injuries that happen. Listen, I had a kid, and I do think he was saved by the net guard, that was skating across the crease, got hit with a shot in his throat. It hit him hard enough where it really, he couldn't breathe, but it didn't lacerate him. And it didn't, and it did offer some type of protection from like a complete catastrophic event. And I know the net guard helped him. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And again, I was a stickler in, like, my players have to wear their net guard in practices and games, not just when the referee goes, "Hey, does everyone have their net guards on?" And you watch, 15 kids run back into the locker room to put their net guard.
Yeah, I'll say a few things here. So one is, Mike, and you kind of dove into this a little bit of a super brief history of these net guards. I mean, I remember when I had to wear one as a kid, it was like a sock. I mean, it was a thick sock. It was very uncomfortable. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not even sure how much it was protecting me. I mean, we're talking 30 years ago at this point. And I think the real reason we wore them was more for getting hit with a puck. I don't think any of us were even thinking about skates coming up. As I got older, Kevlar was introduced, mildly more comfortable, but again, they weren't great. Today, the technology is insane of how, Mike, how you said, how thin these things can get and how protective they are. Not to mention they're built into most equipment. So there really is no excuse anymore. I'm not saying these were good excuses when we were younger, Mike, not to wear one, but there were reasons, right? They were uncomfortable. They were gigantic. You found a reason. They were sweaty. They got heavy. There's really no reason anymore. One of the things I love about neck protection today, as you said, is a lot of it's built into the equipment. So if I'm a parent, I am a parent. My kids they have started hockey with neck protection. They've never known not wearing something around their neck, but it's built into their Under Armour or into their protective gear. We use that Duster hockey gear, right? And the reason I mention that is because they can't forget it. It's not something you can forget in your bag. And I'm telling you right now, pro shops are going to be stocking up on neck guards, banking that these kids are going to forget them because you can't play without them. So,
well, they're out of stock right now. They're out. I mean, most of the companies,
right?
You can't get the protection. I think, you make a great point too, that now the technology is not there. It's not a standalone, 10-inch neck guard. It's built in.
It's built in
gear.
And comfortable.
Yeah.
And comfortable. In fact, my kids, if my kids don't have that part, it feels weird to them. So, and that brings me to my next point, right? It's not normal till it's normal. This is the truth. In 10 years, no one's going to be having this discussion because it's going to be grandfathered in, right? Every 6U player right now that has to start with that, an 8U player, they're going to be wearing them their whole time, and it's probably not something they're going to take off. I also want to point out that several NHL players have made the commitment to start wearing it to make a good example. As you said, the IIHF players have to wear them. It's just one of those things. It'll be normalized very quickly. But with that said, I can't imagine, and I haven't heard this, any parent complaining about it. It is now part of the game. It's a good decision. It should have been done a long time ago. I mean, when you think about it, Mike, this is how I look at it too. When you think about the entirety of the body in ice hockey, you would never play without your elbow pads. You would never play without your shin guards. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things, like from the nose down to below the jugular. I don't know why we haven't protected ourselves, but this is a good rule. It's a good rule change again for everybody. No matter when you're listening to this, as you enter into next season, you must have a neck guard. They will not let you step on the ice if your child is not wearing a neck guard. I know most of you know that, but we're reiterating it right now. We can keep talking about this for a minute. I just wanted to.
And it's good for your parent. And I know because I've seen parents battle with their kids, especially
won't be anymore
in their teen years, right?
Yeah.
And it was a hard sell for them. The kids, I don't like the way it feels, refusing to wear it. Well, good. You don't have a choice now. Get out there and put your neck guard on. If you don't have it, you can't skate.
And I think some strategies behind this change too is to get into the routine that you're just like, it's like one of these pieces of equipment that, I think we've had the example on the show about getting a stick, right? You don't have a game stick and a practice stick. You have your hockey stick. So the exact same stick you would use at any time. You should be able to, blindly go in and pick up your stick, and it should be your stick that you use, right? I think it's the same thing with neck guard protection and this underguard stuff that, get 2 sets Nobody wants to see an old, neck guard that you've been wearing for the last, 6 games.
Not washed.
And not washed. You do whatever you want with your hygiene, but
Wash your gear, people.
I think if you can wash it and have a rotation, I think that's a big strategy to help. And I think just as importantly, like I said earlier, coaches, you must, because nobody's going to be looking at this. You have to make sure these kids are wearing neck guards in practice. If you don't have them wearing neck guards in practice, it's more of a fight. So for the older kids, they're all going to say, "Oh, I don't need to wear a neck guard." It's the same thing. There's a rule right now that you have to have ear protection on a helmet in youth hockey. Like, you can't have an open eardrum. And I can't tell you at the midget level.
I mean, take them off. It's the dumbest thing.
They take it off. It's more effort. They take more effort to take these things off. Because
I can hear better when it's off, Mike.
I don't know what the reason is. And for me, like, I was kind of a player, and you could probably ask some guys to play with me. I'm like, that was an open invitation for a good butt end into the eardrum. But I think it's like, when you have, well, listen, it is what it is.
I remember those days, man.
Take advantage of it. But I think, it's the same thing. If I'm a coach and I'm like watching a player take their earpiece out, and then the only time they put it in is when the one ref in the league, who everybody thinks is a jackass, like, "Oh, that ref, he's terrible." I go, well, there's a rule in place, and he's like, "You guys have to follow the rule." So practice, wear your neck guard, wear your mouth guard, wear your earpiece.
Practice like you play.
Practice like you play, but prepare and practice like you play.
I got to say this, Mike, too.
Stuff can't go back and forth.
Since you brought it up, I have to say this. And parents, share this with your kids. If you have never been hit in the ear before with a puck or anything, it is one of the most painful things that can possibly happen to you. That's not a severe injury. With that said, it can be a severe injury. And I'm telling you right now, if you have aspirations and dreams of playing, if you can't hear out of one ear, it's going to be really hard for you. But I'm going to say it again. The ear is one of the most painful injuries in hockey. Anyone who's been hit in the ear will tell you this, that they would have put that thing on right away if they knew how much that was going to hurt. It's not a bruise. It is severe pain, and there can be major problems afterwards if you don't know what you're doing. You don't want to mess with that.
And you're not impeding your ability to hear.
Nothing. Yeah.
I don't even know why. I don't even know why you would do it, to be honest with you. But it is what it is. Kids do this. You have a 12, 13-year-old boy. First thing they do is they go in, they take the screwdriver, and they take the earpiece out. I'm like, why? Why do you go into this effort of doing this? And then you lose it, then you can't play. But again, neck guards, protective gear, everything you do in practice or want to be performing in the game, you should be doing in practice.
Absolutely agree. And
that's where coaches.
Well, and coaches,
this is
mandated.
Up to the coaches. Yeah. You're absolutely right. They need to get on top of that. Too many coaches have looked the other way during practices. And then when the game time comes, the kids aren't used to it. Why is that? Well, if you had conditioned them and if you had made it a rule, then there would be no argument with you. You wouldn't hear them giving you some, pushback.
Again, turn this into a positive for your locker room.
Exactly.
Like, this is a day one commitment. That's the word I'm using from the entire team, that we are all going to commit to wearing neck protection. That's something we're going to be unified on. Does anybody have a problem with that? It's a mandate. Make it a positive.
And the coolest thing, and I did this back in the day when we had to wear neck guards in one of the leagues I coached in, that now the reason, the fact that it's now mandated is it's going to expand the market. People are going to get really creative on doing, logos and names and colors, and
it's going to be normalized.
It's really going to end up being a piece of your equipment. And that whole big neck area is a great place to advertise. And, there's so many different ways you can go about using this extra piece of equipment that you have to wear, that somebody's going to take advantage of and use it in a positive way.
Well, we've already seen that, right?
I think we need our kids play hockey, neck guards.
My mom loves me.
Let's manufacture them.
No, Mike, I think you're right. You're going to start seeing personalized things. I think just before we move on from this, we've also seen some evolutions in this already. A lot of companies have gone, well, why just the neck? And now I mentioned them before, Duster Hockey. They've been on the show a few times. This isn't a sponsored segment or anything, but they thought outside the box. They said they did the neck, they did the wrists, they did the Achilles on their adult gear. They've done the between the legs. Like, they've thought of everywhere where there's a potential laceration point that could be deadly and covered it up. I wear this stuff now. And I tell you what, I bought a base layer with a neck protector to show my kids I'm wearing it too. Because you got to lead by example, right?
Right.
And I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not uncomfortable at all, but it's a weird feeling with something new there for me. But my ego gets put aside, right? You got to protect yourself. You never know what's going to happen. So, look, just closing this segment out, neck protection mandatory for the 2024-25 season and beyond, not going to change. And there are a tremendous amount of options out there for you. I'm sure most of you have looked it up already, but we definitely wanted to have a discussion on that. Mike, did you have another thought on that?
No, I mean, I just had we got a close personal friend, a player, literally last weekend at a tournament, took a cut to the neck.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oof.
it's going to be an awful scar. I mean, it's just he's alive, he's fine, he's well, but it will be an horrific scar he'll have for the rest of his life. It
Right.
looks like a tracheotomy.
Right.
Oh
Like,
gosh.
and
Was
I'm
it
like,
a blade that cut or
laid
a
across
blade?
the neck.
It happens.
Oof.
And it was
Unfortunately,
just a freak, two kids going after a puck, and one kid's leg gets thrown in the air, and
Oh gosh.
and to me, like, and to me, like, I actually just talking to a couple of manufacturers the last 2 weeks about how it's needed at the youngest levels. Like, these kids are like these little 8-year-olds are sliding into each other
They
like
do.
on a regular basis, like skates
Yeah.
up. It's like, okay,
they
so
don't know. They don't
no,
know.
they don't know. So if
You
you're a
have to swing
parent,
at 'em.
if you're new to hockey, then you're probably like, oh, of course, I would wear neck guard and wrist protection and Achilles protection, and like any like skin that's exposed should
Mhm.
be covered, right? I mean, I have my kids all wear Kevlar socks, and it's all because your ankle and because if some kids skate with the laces open and that area of the ankle more pliable, so they're like their laces aren't tied all the way up. So if there's a lot more movement, and like me, I get cringy. I start seeing skin. I'm like, oh boy, because a
Yeah.
lot of people play without socks on or half socks or whatever. I'm like, my God, just get a pair of thin Kevlar, cut resistant socks that go up to your calf, and you're at least trying to protect yourself, I guess, a little bit. But I think it's just a
Right.
matter of the preference of finding the gear you like, go into your pro shop. They all have these different name brands, from whatever it is, and try it on and use it and say, okay, I like this, I don't like this, and get your team in there. And if you want to, you really get if you want to get crazy, it's early in the year. This is probably going to come out in the summer. Go out, get them custom done, get numbers on there, get the kids' names on there, go crazy on it. It's a great opportunity to add a little bit of
Flair.
team flair to
A little
yourself.
bit
Yeah,
of
no doubt.
flair. Team
There was
flair.
there was a company for a while there. It was doing neck guard covers for neck guards, and they were custom covers. So you put a neck guard cover on,
Well, they're about
and
to be in business.
change the color. You can change the color and change the name and change whatever you want.
Well, I'll say one more thing on this is that, and you could say this in 10 years and 20 years again, but parents, I'm telling you right now, the equipment today is so good compared to the equipment 15, 20 years ago. There really is, you could not convince me that you can't get a fully protective set of gear that's comfortable for
Oh,
your
yeah.
kid. It's just, it's so comfortable today. The technology has advanced so much in the last 15, 20 years. I'd say it's impossible to be uncomfortable if you want to be comfortable, right? So, as Christie always says, go to the pro shop, get yourself fitted, do it the right
But,
way. Don't just get it online and hope for the best, right? So
right.
once a season trip you got to make, unless you're a
Yeah.
goalie parent, that's another episode. All right,
Yeah.
let's move on to the next one. This one was interesting. So SafeSport, for those of you who don't know, all coaches, all volunteers have to go through the SafeSport training every single year. It's really great training. The first year is pretty long. Then every year you have to go through a refresher course, but it just runs you through obviously needed scenarios to make sure that as an adult you are appropriate to the children, you're appropriate to other adults, and that you're entering into the season with some knowledge of what not and what not to do. Many people would say it's common sense, but it's not for you. It's for the people who don't know it's common sense. And it's a training that when you take it, you can understand why you have to take it. So with that in mind, I thought this was interesting. SafeSport training is now required for all 06 and 07 players. So that's 18U. So moving forward, any players in the 18U age level need to get SafeSport training. So, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time now athletes are being required to take the SafeSport training in addition to the adults. I like this move. I'll tell you why. Because most of these kids are going to be turning 18 during this time period within either the first or second year of being in an 18U. Not to mention, I just think from a development standpoint, entering into college and the workplace standpoint, this is really important training for young men and women to get to understand this is what's appropriate. This is not, and here's the consequences if you decide to break these rules, not just in hockey, right? So all 18U level players now required to take SafeSport training.
Yeah, well, I think it's, well, so it used to be like if you wanted a kid to be a volunteer coach or help out, you know, you'd have to go through that process if you were that old, right? But I think this way, what I first of all, I love this rule. I and mandate. I wish they had a different module for the kids.
Yeah, sure.
Honestly, because
For
I think
sure.
I think a lot of it might be just not relevant to them sometimes. And I think it's just, but what I can say is, here's how I would do this if I was working with an 18U team, and I do. If you I would not, I would take this as part of your team building exercise. I would literally sit the kids in a room. They all have their own phones. They can go in here and get on and get their certification, but do it together. Do it together in a room as a team. You know, if I'm the SafeSport coach, if I'm the coach and I have to do my SafeSport, you put it up on the screen and you go through the process with your players. Everybody, because I know for a fact that most of the coaches that I know that go through SafeSport just play it in the background. It's common sense. If you can't pass SafeSport, then you probably shouldn't be coaching anyway.
Oh yeah.
Honestly. I mean, if you can't get through what the lessons are, you're probably not set up for success anyway. But in this case, these are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. This is the process we should work with them in. And I think it helps build the importance. Like if you do mission statements and you do team building exercises, like this fits into that whole process for 18U teams, because then it makes everybody accountable for what they're learning, and the teaching and the USA Hockey has done, and the Center for SafeSport has done a great job at putting this together. I mean, personally, I think the presentations are great.
Yeah, they're not horrible at all.
The scenarios are very real. They're very, current. But I think it's one of those things where you get in a room with your team, everybody does together. It's only going to take you 2 hours to do a group, and everybody gets their certification at the exact same time. But more importantly, you use this process to help you as a coach and a manager cover yourself too. It gives you the opportunity to say, listen, we're going over all this stuff as a group and as a team. And if you want, because you're going to have your maybe 1 or 2 team parents or managers that have to be in there anyway, like get them all in there, make it a part of the process of your team building exercise. Don't just tell the kids, hey, by next Thursday, you got to be SafeSport certified and, get it done. I just don't think there's an impact there. I really don't.
Yeah, I like that idea of it being a team building and, make it fun for them. Say, okay, we're all going to get together this night. We'll have a pizza party afterwards. And then that, and you have to make it mandatory. Don't just say, you can voluntarily come. No, if you want to skate with us, we got to get this done. It's mandatory. And invite parents along too. Why not? I think
you got to remember discussion. You got to remember, kids will get redlined on their roster. So if you're not, there's no chance for them not to do it because they won't be able to play. Like it's just like you don't get SafeSport certified as a
mandated.
Coach.
Yeah.
It gets redlined in your program. So your risk manager, your ACE coordinator, whoever is running this in your organization gets a notice that, hey, Mike Bonelli is not certified in SafeSport. He cannot be with the team. Practice, games, bench, locker room, nothing. Like so, this is just. If your starting goalie is not SafeSport certified,
he's not your starting goalie.
Yeah.
So
I think having the kids all together, knowing that they went ahead and completed, and everybody's 100%. Doing it together is a great idea.
Yeah,
because if you let them do it on their own,
who
knows if they really are actually paying attention either.
Yeah, or mom and dad's doing it for them. Like, God,
don't do that. Yeah, that's a mistake.
No, it happens.
I'll tell you guys this. So, and Christie, just to Mike's point, one of the cool things about SafeSport is that it links right to my USA Hockey profile. So once I complete it, it's in there so that my organization can check, hey, you did or did not do this right away. Here's the deal, and this is all I'm going to say. A few things. One, I'm not speaking to every coach here because I think most coaches are going to be pretty cool about this, but there's a few. Don't downplay this thing. Don't downplay it as, it's some stupid questions you got to answer. It'll take it. It's horrible. It's annoying. You'll get there. We got to do this for work too. I hate it. Don't downplay it. All right. This is
Yeah.
something that, first off, every 16, 17, 18-year-old should know about these things before they go to college. Okay. There's lots of different reasons for that. Use your imagination. The other thing too is, again, turn it into a positive. I think it's a pretty cool thing to put on a college application. I am SafeSport certified. I went through this and I got this certification as part of my athletic journey. That looks good to a college application. It's
Sure
also something
does.
a lot of other
Absolutely.
people don't have. Mike said it. Use it as a team building opportunity. Get together all at once and do it. I'll reiterate what Mike said. This training is pretty well put together. It's not chalkboard nails on a chalkboard. I don't even know if that's a relevant.
Oh, and
metaphor
it's not,
anymore.
and it's just not a PowerPoint presentation. You're not just
No,
watching it.
no,
It's
it's
interactive.
good.
Yeah.
And they have real interviews on there from real people that have been in real
Yeah.
situations. I'll also say this too. It starts with this pre-test, right? And I'm going to tell you, I always do extremely well on these things. Like I feel like I need to say that for some reason, but I'm not going to lie to you. There's some questions on there that, like, I don't know if this is the right answer or not. Now, by the end, you do. Okay. But they present you with some scenarios, especially some multiple choice scenarios where it's like, I'm not quite sure if that's true. Or what do you do? These are the questions that really will get you. Okay. Let's say you see something. Now what? Let's say one of my favorite ones, you saw something 3 years ago. Now what? Now you might think you know the answers to those questions, but there's very clear guidelines on what you need to be doing if you saw something at any point. I don't want to spoil the training, right? But I'm just saying, I think most of you listening out there that have taken this training know there's been a question or two on there. You might not have been so sure of the answer, right? And you are by the end. And that's why this training is important. The other thing is this. The other thing is this. And this is the dark side of it. And this will help us segue too. But 99.9% of the people that take this training probably don't need it. But it's that 0.1% that need it, that why we all have to take it. And it's worth it because no one listening to this show or in youth hockey wants that scenario to play out. Right. And that's why it's so important that trainings like this exist. Look, I never loved HR training at work. I never, it was always in the way, but I understood why we had to take it. Right. Because it's an accountability thing. It's a liability thing. Right. So I think it's great that they're having the late teens take this. I think it's important because these kids also interact with other kids within the program and you don't know what you don't know. All right. And this SafeSport pretty much lays out, this is what you need to know.
Right. And there could be, as you said, a percentage of kids out there who have one of these scenarios play out right in front of them.
Right.
And they'll have that basic training. Okay, my gut's right. I need to do this and think back on the training and it clicks. And then they'll know what to do and where to turn and who to go to. That's really important stuff.
And I think
don't discount it.
I think it too. It reemphasizes the fact that these are children, and sometimes they're not getting this education, or they're like, "Oh, that's stupid." Like, "Oh, of course I can, do that in the locker room," or "Of course that kid's not going to care that I do that to them." But there are kids that care, and again, this falls under the category of, to what extent are we asking these kids to be adults? But listen, if I have a kid that wants to work with me in a clinic and he's a SafeSport certified and he's gotten all this other stuff done, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's
like you got to acquire it almost.
I'm like, this is awesome. I can have this kid in the locker room. I can have this kid speaking to my kids. I can have him on the bench. I can have him, all these different things. So, use it as a positive to, like Lee said, use it as a team building exercise. Use it as a way to reinforce your messaging as a coach to what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, not based off of like what you think, but what the law is, and keeping these kids out of trouble so that you're not sitting in a SafeSport committee hearing when your kid's been suspended for 4 months for doing something that they probably could have avoided by just, understanding that this is acceptable and unacceptable behavior. And these are human things that we're doing here and not just, again, we all use the excuse, oh, they're just kids, oh, they're just boys. But that's just not a reality. It just isn't.
It doesn't fly anymore.
Be proactive.
Well, I tell you right now, if you're 18, you're not just a kid anymore legally. So you got to know that. The other thing too, and last note on the SafeSport is that I don't think a lot of people, but I could see how some people might say, "Oh, that stuff's going to make you soft." And I can tell you right now that having taken the training, it's nothing like that. There's nothing in there that I would construe as, oh, we're going to make the kids soft. It was all, no, this is really pertinent information. As a parent, I can understand why I need to take this. As a coach, I understand why I need to take this. And I
Right.
like that a late teenager would have to take it. Go ahead, Mike.
Right.
And for
That
tho-
stuff is going to make kids leaders and respected.
Agreed.
So think of it that way.
Yeah, and the things that have come up that's a money grab, I think it's free. I think it's part of your registration. I don't think there's an extra, like it's not like coaching education.
I didn't
where
have to pay for it. Yeah.
like an extra $10. I think it comes with your, like, so this is not another money grab. This is not a, oh my
No,
God, they're
no.
trying to now they're going after, the 12,000 18U kids. No, that's not what it is. The kids have to be registered with USA Hockey anyway. So it's all part of that system. So there's not an extra, $10 hit.
Tell you about a money grab. I got a local rink alliance now getting rid of Live Barn for their own camera system that we all have to pay for now. That's a money grab. That's another episode, though.
Oh, God.
We're all very upset about that. Okay, last rule.
I think that's going to be a trend. I really do.
It's brutal. It's brutal. It's another episode. The capitalization of me watching my kids. All right, the last
There's
rule
going
on
to be
here.
17 cameras in the building.
Yeah, right. I want the 3D HD experience. Okay, last rule. All locker rooms are required to have a SafeSport certified person, coach, manager, parent in the locker room anytime the players are in there. I think a lot of people are going to listen to this one and say, wait, someone's supposed to be in there all the time? By the rule book, yes, there is supposed to be a chaperone, I guess, of sorts, or someone in the locker room, monitor, as Mike put it before the episode, at all times. That is what's supposed to happen. So that person needs to be SafeSport certified. That part of it makes sense. I think the big question, Mike, again, is people going, well, I'm not doing that. I'm in the sense of I haven't been doing that. So, Mike, I'm going to throw it to you. What are your thoughts on this one?
So the way we've done it in the past is you go to like 7 different parents. You say, listen, instead we don't have one manager, like one locker room. Like everybody has roles, right? Some people take care of the scorekeeping and some people take care of the scheduling. And the fact is now you have to think about, okay, who's going to be their locker room monitor? And if it's going to be one person, they have to get SafeSport certified. If you're not going to have one person, then every parent needs to get SafeSport certified. And maybe it's just another opportunity, to get your team in a group setting and have a parent meeting and have everybody do it. Honestly, I mean, to me, but it is here's the scenario. Coach goes in, big loss, yells and screams at a couple of kids, slams the door and leaves. 15 minutes later, so-and-so says something to this kid, and this kid says something to that kid. There was a locker room brawl. This kid got hurt. Now you're getting sued. Now you're getting called in. Now you're not, under the regulations of SafeSport. The parent that had the problem is now reporting you, and now you have a whole big issue. And really, and I don't, I'm not going to give any. Don't take. Again, I'm not an expert in this, so don't take. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know if you necessarily have to be standing in the middle of the locker room, but you got to be at the locker room. I'll let Christie chime in here because I just definitely want to talk about that dynamic of having an adult in the locker room sometimes, because I do think that to me is a big deal. But Christie, you've experienced this all through your kids' youth hockey.
Right. During the youth hockey, we always alternated. So, would tag it's your turn to be in the locker room. And it did help keep it a friendlier atmosphere because, kids are kids. They pick on each other. At teenage years, they pull out the vapes, right? So, no vaping in the locker room, please.
Don't put crap in your lungs that's not oxygen. Sorry, I just wanted to say
exactly.
that. You want to be a good athlete, don't do that.
No, it does. It stops a lot of the silliness and sometimes it can get really nasty in there, especially as you said, after, a volatile game, the tempers are still flaring and you need a calm presence in there to keep things peaceful and to keep kids out of trouble and from the fist flying. I think it's important to have that presence there. It always worked when we took turns, so it didn't always fall on one person. And, we parents would share stories. So, we need to keep these kids away because you can kind of see the tension or, so-and-so, maybe you should talk to him because he seems to be picking on, another player. and you can get a real good vibe of the team and kind of see when things are starting to bubble up, where you can do those preemptive strikes before it gets really nasty. So
Yeah,
I
and
think it's an important role that parents play, or whoever you pick.
I'll just come out and say it. Look, kids are capable of doing some very stupid things in the locker room when no
Yeah,
one's looking. I think an even larger threat is obviously what goes on the phones and the digital devices outside of the locker room, outside of the team. Not just talk about cyberbullying, but the hiding behind a screen thing. But look, I don't really have a problem with this. I think it's easy for everybody to say, or for people to say, no one watched us when I was a kid. And then I'm also like, we did some pretty stupid stuff when no one was
sure.
watching when we were kids. And the other thing too is that this is just the world we live in right now. Look, my friends, organizations have to have liability. All right. And when you look at the size, this is a positive and a negative, I guess. When you look at the size of youth sports and the business that it's become, these organizations have to protect themselves and we have to protect our kids. So to Mike's point, I think what all organizations should do is offer SafeSport training to any parent that wants to get it for free, right? Because you'll eliminate a lot of. I know that there will be eager parents to jump up and say, "I'll take that just so I can be involved in some form." In terms of the season, I think most coaches, Mike, that I've worked with have a rotation in and out of the locker room on practice and game days. Like someone's typically in there, and you take turns going in and out. But it never hurts to have some extra help. Obviously, this rule was created because something happened where a adult was in there that was not supposed to be in there, and did see something, didn't see something, did something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is that there has to be liability on that adult in the locker room. Also, now with all the 18U players getting certified, you can ask them to volunteer on game days to come in and help you out. Go ahead, Mike.
No, but I think it's a great tool maybe for a coach as well, right? Hey, you're not SafeSport certified. I'm sorry, you just can't be in the locker room and you can't be around the kids, and makes it, get kind of get out of jail free card a little bit. But I will say this, when you're working with 12-year-olds and 13 and 14-year-olds, I just love, I think there is such an important role of what the locker room is. I mean, one of the things we talked about in the show multiple times is like what's so great about our sport. And I think one of the things that's great about our sport is the locker room, is the fact that these
Totally.
kids get to be, in a place where they're not like in soccer, we just get dropped off and you run on the field and you run home and get in your car and go. Like there's long periods of time where kids are in the locker room. And so think about how you're going to do this as a coach. I mean, are they more comfortable with you in the locker room? Are they more comfortable with one person in the locker room? Can you be quote unquote in the locker room by just having the door open and you standing in the hallway? And don't forget, this goes not just for practice games. This is practices. So you have 3 practices a week. That's 3 people. Right. That's not like your 24-year-old coach that you hired for the 8U team, and he's just showing up 4 seconds before practice and jumping on the ice. Somebody's got to be, for your organization to be compliant and be safe and not put yourself in a really situation. You need to now proactively think about how are those locker rooms going to be monitored for the success of our organization all week,
Right.
not just on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. And I think this is I think it's a huge shift in the rule where it opens up more problems than this is my opinion, more problems than it solves, because now there's so many different gaps in the coverage that we need to account for now.
Right. It's true,
And
Mike.
and think about that Monday, Wednesday, Friday practice, how hard it is to even get the kids there on time in the first place, how hard it is to find coaches in the first place. Now you got to find a parent that's willing to sit in that locker room, multiple hours during the week. It's going to be, it's difficult, but I think now is the time, if you're a manager, a head coach, a program administrator, now is the time to start proactively looking at that schedule and figuring out how you're going to do it. And to Lee's point, if you're putting an 18U player on the roster as a locker room monitor for practices, hey, maybe that's a great solution. Maybe that is a solution. Or you gotta make sure you're telling your coaches, listen, if you're gonna tell your kids they have to be at the rink an hour before practice, you need to be at the rink
100%.
an hour before practice, and you need to be in that locker room. Or guess what? You're going to be getting dressed out in the hallway.
Yeah, you might get in trouble, right? So look, whether you agree or disagree with the rule or you have thoughts on this, it's the rule now, right? So as Mike's saying, you're going to have to make things. One of the things I love about the 18-year-olds is, just from a perception standpoint, if I'm a youth hockey player, it's a lot cooler to me if a 17 or 18-year-old's in that room and not my dad at certain points, right? So I'm just saying, almost everybody we're talking to has an 18U aspect here. What a great volunteer opportunity to
Yeah.
instill into your program, assuming there's time. 18-year-olds are very busy. I totally get that. But I'm saying you got at least 15 people now that are certified in SafeSport, at least, right? Most likely you have more like 30. Right, that this is a great volunteer opportunity to give back to some of those younger kids if you're looking for something, and then again helping parents get that. But again, Mike, I remember if I was 15, 14, and there was an 18-year-old in there, I'd feel a little more comfortable just
you're
doing
gonna be
what I
careful there
talking.
Too. Well, it's a double-edged sword there, right? Now you got 18.
Totally.
You better make sure you have a pretty mature 18-year-old in there. I mean, like, because they'll go down, they'll just zip right down the line.
I'm 100% with you on that.
But again, I think that the rule is there because obviously people in the room shouldn't have been there. The influence was wrong. Right. There was no coverage. Like, well, why the hell was this person in there? Well, yeah, because of this. Well, I don't know if SafeSport solves the problem of bad parenting, but what it does is it solves the issue of liability. Right. And I think then you need to be proactive as an organization, as a coach, to say, well, we're not looking at this as a liability issue. We're looking at this as a logistical issue, and how do we solve the problem of this new rule? And one of the things we got to do, it's just like imagine if there was a new rule that every team had to have 3 coaches on the bench. Like if the rule of USA Hockey said every team has to have 3 certified coaches on the bench, or you can't play. I think the sport would end.
The whole Midwest would be under.
I mean, I've seen teams with one coach on the bench, and for multiple teams. So this actually, it just adds another staff member,
right,
or another layer of staff,
another responsibility. It's another responsibility.
And now, in June, July, and August is probably the time to attack this.
I'll say this in closing.
Exactly. Plan ahead. Now you know what's coming.
And that's why we do these episodes, right? This is why we're here for you. I will say this one thing I just thought about, Mike. Oddly enough, this does give you coaches the ability to tell that parent that's about to storm in the locker room, well, you're not SafeSport certified, so you can't go in there right now, right?
Yeah, you need to beat me up, and you need to beat me up in the parking lot, and not in the locker room.
Not in the locker. You can't come in here if you're not safe. It's going to happen a lot. But look, just reiterating, because we're out of time here. The 3 new rules. Every youth hockey player, you got to have a net guard. No ifs, ands, or buts. You're not getting on the ice without that. If you are a U18 player, you must now be SafeSport certified. Again, coaches, make that a team event. Don't downplay it. Make it something positive. Remember, you can put that on a college resume. You can put that on a job resume. Now I'm thinking about it. Whatever you're doing, that's something you're going to do. And then again, all teams now, 1 chaperone, 1 somebody in the locker room, an adult has to be there, or someone who's SafeSport certified has to be in the locker room at all times. That's the changes for the 24-25 season and beyond until they change something else. Hope it's been informative. Great discussion around this. I know a lot of people are having these discussions in their local hockey communities, and we love having that discussion with you. Mike, Christie, any final words before we close the episode out?
No, this is easy stuff. You guys can do it. It's not hard. Just takes a little planning and coordination.
Takes a grown $35 and then you dive into the season. Mike, any final thoughts?
I think a lot of it's common sense, and a lot of it's going to help if you approach it the right way, in the right timing. It's actually a great positive step in the right direction for our sport, and will make teams and organizations better in the long run.
Totally
agree. Great episode, guys. Again, if you're interested in more information like this, if you're interested in having conversations like this, make sure you check out our group on Facebook. It's aptly titled Our Kids Play Hockey. You can join that. The conversations continue there. You can give us episode ideas there. Something that we always look forward to from this audience. But above all, we want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to us once again here on Our Kids Play Hockey. Check out ourkidsplayhockey.com for all episodes. But without further ado, we're going to let you go on with your week. Thank you so much, everybody. Skate on, take care, and stay out there. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.